Hello everybody and welcome to the ultimate guide to Melvor Idle. This is going to be a complete guide covering all skills in the game. I'm going to make it easy for you. I've got chapters down in the video if you look at the time bar in the video. I've got chapters for each skill. I'm going to go over every single skill in the game in depth. This video obviously took me a long time to put together, so if you can, leave a like. But yeah, anyway, let's get into this guide. So starting at the top here in the non-combat skills, we've got woodcutting. You just cut wood. Basically, you just cut down trees. You can cut down more than one if you buy a certain upgrade in the shop. The wood you get from trees is mostly used for firemaking and fletching, though some of it is sometimes used like in agility to construct some of these obstacles, to make ints in summoning, and in cartography you need it to make maps. So if you have Atlas of Discovery, you can also use wood to make maps. You can buy axes to decrease the length of time it takes for each tree. Cutting down I think redwood and yew is a really good way of making money in this game. I think that's right. It's okay. It's not as good as some of the other ones that we'll talk about later. Next up on the list is fishing. So fishing is, well, you fish. There's a little bit more to this than woodcutting though. So this is a pretty consistent way of making money early game. And there are two item drops that you really want from fishing, which are the Ancient Ring of Skills and the Ancient Ring of Mastery. Two really good items that will help you level up everything into the late game. One of my favorite things to go for here is the raw skeleton fish and the secret area, which you get, I think, from getting the message in a bottle, which you get randomly out of the treasure chest you get from fishing. These skeleton fish, I'm just gonna fish one up here. They can be sold for a decent amount of money. 175 gold each, but they can also be buried for 3 prayer points each. So if you leave this overnight on the skeleton fish, you can sell half, bury half. You get a good amount of money and a good amount of prayer points as well. Pretty solid way to do things. Obviously, a lot of the fish are going to be used in one of the next skills we're going to talk about, which is cooking to make food. Next up is firemaking. Not really, honestly, anything that interesting. You just burn wood. When you burn the wood, it makes ashes, which are used in a few things. You use ashes in crafting to make these urns, which you then use an alt magic to turn them into prayer points. These are the best way to get prayer points, I think. It's widely accepted it is the best way to get prayer points in the entire game. So if you can do that, the ashes are pretty solid. But other than that, firemaking is kind of useless. Another interesting thing to note about firemaking is the skill cape that you get. So with every single skill in the game, once you hit level 99, you can buy the skill cape, and they give different things depending on what they are. The firemaking one, which is really good, is 5% global skill XP, which is really good for leveling up skills. But that's about it for firemaking, pretty simple. Next up is cooking. You cook stuff. Basically, you have the cooking fire, the furnace, and the pot. Each one has different types of recipes. So let's say I wanted to cook some of these frost crabs up, and I cook them. You can see here it says passive cook. So let me turn this off. If I try to click passive cook, it says here, you need to actively be cooking something to start a passive cook. So while I'm active cooking these frost crabs, I can go in here, select the bread, and do a passive cook, and then I'll passively cook something else. You might be able to do 2 at the same time, I'm not sure. You don't really use the passive cook that often, but it is kind of helpful for leveling because you do get extra XP, which is always nice. You need to try and get the mastery skills up for whatever food you want to eat. You can see here I've been using frost crabs a lot. Because of that, I've leveled them up to 99 mastery, because once you hit 99, the food heals you for an extra 20%. So it saves a little bit of food while you're AFK. Makes it a little bit more efficient when you're grinding for this. But yeah, that's about it for cooking. Pretty simple, just get food. Mining is also fairly simple. You get rune essence, which is used in runecrafting, which is we'll talk about in a little bit. You have all the ores that you use in smithing, some crystals, and for crafting, for late game crafting, and then some of the Throne of the Herblores. But it's fairly simple. You just mine stuff. You'll notice you mine coal a lot because of smithing, which is our next skill. Most of the bars, bronze doesn't, iron doesn't, or steel does too. But silver and gold actually do not take coal to smelt. Mithril and up starts taking a lot of coal. Mithril takes 4 per. Corundumite, which is the first Throne of the Herald bars, takes 16 coal per. Dragonite, which is the last vanilla bar, takes 12 coal per. So it gets up pretty high, the coal cost. However, you can get the smithing skill cape, which reduces the coal costs for smithing by 50%. This is another one that's kind of a must grab. There aren't that many that are like a must grab in terms of skill capes, but smithing is definitely one of them. Yeah, in smithing, you can see up here, you've got tabs for every single type of gear you can make in the game. We have imbued bars, which is a part of Atlas of Discovery, I believe. You can imbue them with barrier dust. You got crystal gear, which is also from Atlas of Discovery, I believe. And then unholy items and stuff like this. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Next up, we got thieving. One of the best ways in the game of making money. And a lot of items that are very, very useful you can only get from this. For example, the Thiever's Cape which gives extra thieving gold from thieving. The sneakers, which give extra stealth and thieving. So the thiever's cape also gives extra stealth. But most importantly, the chapeau noir gives 10% chance to double loot in combat. And that will be very, very helpful pretty much for doing anything in the game. Grinding for Fez, grinding the god dungeon, grinding any dungeons for chests, because it can double chest drops as well. Very, very good item. Bob the Farmer, one of the best ways of making money is grinding him because of the magic tree seeds. I'm not all the way maxed out on this yet. You can get the Knight's Cape, which is a pretty good cape before you do Dragon's Den. If you got this far in Thieving before you do Dragon's Den, this does give a little bit of damage reduction. And you can get some decent armor and gear and stuff. The Squire also drops a Knight's Cape, so you don't have to do up to the Knight to get it. You get the idea. Wizard can drop some decent stuff. Wizard armor, runes, stuff like that. Yeah, if you want to look more into thieving, be sure to check out the wiki page for thieving. It can go very, very in-depth. I'm just going to show you the basic one. I did a lot of thieving chef early on because he drops really good food, and because of the cooking apron and the chef's hat, and on base without any extra items, he gives about 3 to 1,000 gold per thief, and it takes about 2.5 seconds for thieving. It's a pretty good source of money and a really good source of food. So highly recommend that, and assistant cook early. Extra early if you don't have the ability to thieve chef yet, but that's about it for that. Next up is Fletching. This is where you're going to make all your bows, crossbows, and ammo. Any kind of ranged weapon or ammo is going to come from here. You can make arrows, such as the normal arrows, like mithril arrows, dragon arrows, stuff like that. And you can make bolts for crossbows here as well, using gems and headless bolts that you get from smithing iron. You craft short bows in here with the wood. You can see, obviously, each one is named after the type of wood it costs to craft. Longbows are the exact same, and then crossbows are using the crossbow heads from smithing as well as wood and bowstring, which you can just buy. You can also make javelins, which I really haven't used much. I know that crafting dragon javelins is one of the best ways to make money while also leveling up Fletching, because it can be kind of annoying to level up. And then you have some of the stuff, basically just an unholy bow and some arrows. That's about it for Fletching, super simple. Next up is crafting. This is basically ranged armor, jewelry, stuff like that. Leather armor, basic dragon hide armor, which you get from killing the dragons. You get the dragon hide, obviously depending on what dragon hide it is, drops from that specific color of dragon. These can be upgraded as well using this dragon hide. So I think it's 250 black dragon hide to upgrade these, and they give a bunch of damage reduction. So pretty solid stuff. Next up is the rings. You can see here, just a bunch of different jewelry. Gold emerald ring, definitely very good, plus 4% combat XP. Silver diamond ring, pretty good, plus 1% damage reduction. Gold topaz ring is really, really interesting because while you have this equipped, you have a very, very low chance of dropping a half of the signet ring. One half comes from combat skills and the other half comes from non-combat skills. The signet ring is one of the best items in the game. It is almost necessary for grinding money. It is very, very hard to get, but it is very, very much worth it. I would highly recommend looking into the signet ring more on the wiki, but the basic idea is you have the gold topaz ring equipped, and then you train combat skills and you train non-combat skills, and you can drop one half of the signet ring from each, and then you combine them to make the full signet ring. The higher the level requirement is for whatever you're doing, the higher the drop chance is. That's basically it for that. Necklaces is basically the same deal. You can look through these if you're interested in any of this. You have bags, which just do specific things like alchemist bag, 10% chance to preserve potion charge, plus 5 charges per potion. Thief's money sack, plus 20% minimum GP for thieving. Just gives you basic buffs depending on certain skills. Urns is what, like we discussed before, use ashes from Firemaking, and then you use these in alt magic to create items that you bury for prayer points. Hardwood armor is, I think, the ranged armor for Throne of the Herald. I have not gotten into that content yet, so I can't speak on that very much. And then special items are all the jewelry and stuff from Atlas of Discovery, like Ring of Barrier Touch and Amulet of Barrier Touch, this kind of stuff. And then imbued materials, same deal, just the imbued materials for range, like we talked about in smithing. Next up, we got Runecrafting. So this is pretty interesting. This is where you craft all of the runes you need, which are the kind of like the ammo for magic. It's a requirement to cast certain spells. You have the basic elemental runes, which are air through earth, these, and then you have catalyst runes, which are, I believe, the mind rune, chaos rune, havoc rune, death rune, blood rune, and ancient rune. And then anything beyond this is Throne of the Herald stuff. I haven't messed with that very much. You can craft combination runes, which don't really matter unless you need them for something specific. I wouldn't really worry about that too much. And then you have staves and wands. You can make things here. For example, you can use a magic wand elite, water runes, and nature runes to do this. You can see what it does. It's a one-handed, pretty good. But yeah, you just craft wands here. The rest of this is pretty much the same stuff. You just craft wizard gear specific to whatever kind of spells you're trying to cast. And then we have, like I stated before, this stuff from Atlas of Discovery. I always think this looks really tasty. I don't know about you guys. To me, this looks really yummy. I want to eat it. It looks like it'd be really sweet. Anyway, next up is Herblore. This is where you're going to craft all of your potions that you're going to need. It might not seem worth it early on because a lot of them don't do very much. Some of the accuracy potions are pretty nice. The main ones you're going for here are going to be the Diamond Luck Potion, which basically doubles your chance to hit. It's complicated. Basically, if you have a 50% chance to hit and you miss the first time, it's going to try to hit again. And even if you hit the first time, it'll try to hit again and will take the higher damage. So that's very good. And then the damage reduction potion is almost necessary for the late game content. Even just tier 3 where I'm at right now gives 6% extra damage reduction, which is the same as essentially an entire, like 2 Fury of the Elemental Zodiacs. You're gonna need these. And then you have skill potions, which are very, very helpful as well for certain skills. I believe the Seeing Gold potion is good. Yeah, 40% chance to receive a gold bar when smithing silver bars. Generous Cook, plus 20% chance to double items in cooking. These are all definitely worth looking through because a lot of them can be very helpful depending on what you're trying to do right now. Next up, we have Agility. Agility can get pretty complicated. There are a lot of like meta builds. People have min-maxed this. But yeah, basically each one of these you can view obstacle selection and build a certain obstacle. Each one has different costs and each one does different things. The further along you get, kind of the more complicated you get, you can kind of see how expensive some of these are. Like this one right now, I have Boulder Move, 14 million gold, 5,000 redwood, 5,000 dragonite bars to build that one. Very, very expensive. But yeah, basically you can do this. It gives you a bunch of extra bonuses like this, plus 50 max hit points, plus 20 max hit points, plus 20 max hit points, plus 2 damage to all monsters, all stuff like that. You can click up here to see view all global passive from Agility. Some of them are negative, but if you build it right, it doesn't really matter. And then finally you get the passive pillar. I believe with Throne of the Herald you get 2 pillar slots, but I haven't gotten there yet. But this is a beginner guide, so I don't think you're worried too much about Throne of the Herald content. But yeah, basically there's 3 different pillars depending on what you're trying to do. Right now I'm trying to build up my skills a little bit more. So I have the pillar of generosity for the extra bank space, potion charges, and global gold. Soon I'm going to try and do impending darkness, so then I'll swap over to the pillar of combat. Yeah, agility can be very, very helpful and it's a decent way of making money as well. But that's about it for that. Let's move on to summoning. So if you're doing Atlas of Discovery, summoning is necessary if you're trying to do that content, because summons are the only thing that can really do damage to the barrier enemies. Stuff like the yak can give you certain things that you need, like extra damage reduction. The monkey gives you a chance to double items in crafting. Mole gives you a chance to gain 1 additional resource in mining. So some of them are very helpful. All of them also have synergies. I'll show you what I have unlocked. So you see here, if I get a wolf and a centaur, which is the ranged one, then I can get plus 8% ranged lifesteal. So you can look through these and figure out if there's something you want. If you're trying to do the Atlas of Discovery content, you kind of have to do summoning. I haven't really messed with it too much on my main character because I've been focusing around on my other skills, and frankly getting the resources for summoning is kind of annoying. I do have this up to like level 90 or something on my Atlas of Discovery, so maybe I'll let you guys get a little sneak peek of that because I'm still working on that right now. This is my summoning on my Ancient Relics mode playthrough. You can see I have a lot more of the synergies unlocked. The tortoise is the main one you need for Atlas of Discovery content. If you're doing that, go for the tortoise every time, because if you combine them with, say, the Minotaur, plus 90 flat barrier damage added to summon familiar if using melee. You can see there's a lot of different things if you're trying to go for certain things. If you want to make money from combat, plus 350 GP from monsters, plus 250% of melee damage dealt as GP, plus 400% gold from Slayer task monsters. Bunch of very, very cool stuff if you want to get into that, and the late game ones are even better. Anyways, moving on from summoning, we've got Astrology. In my opinion, Astrology is probably the most important skill in the game. You can see I kind of have everything completely maxed out. It's the only skill where I even have all the Throne of the Herald content maxed out as well. Basically, you get stuff for free. You just put time in this. You find these stardusts by just exploring these, studying them, and you use those to upgrade these. And these give you global buffs. There's no negative at all, and it's very, very helpful. You can see these are all of the positive modifiers that I have for my completely maxed out Astrology. For example, plus 40% accuracy rating, plus 5% of maximum hit added to minimum hit, plus 5% chance to receive gems from mining, plus 5% food healing value, Bunch of very helpful stuff. That's about it. You can look through this in your own time. It's pretty clear to see what's going on. You can see exactly what skills each one is good for by the icons. But this is definitely worth your time investment. We already talked about alt magic a little bit. Basically you just cast spells. It's kind of just like an alternative way generally to level your magic up. The main things that are worth doing are item alchemy. You can use this like I was talking about before with the dragon javelins, and you sell them basically for more gold than they're worth. So like if I went in here, let's say I went with Earth God Helmet. So Earth God Helmet by itself is worth 400k, but by putting it into the item alchemy, I get 755k. So it's a jump of about 350,000. So it's definitely worth doing for making money, and it's not that expensive in terms of runes if you've been keeping up with your rune crafting. The other one, other than this, Superheat 4 or Superheat 5. Basically it uses runes and ore and creates 3 bars using 1 ore, ignoring all coal requirements. So even if I wanted to do Dragonite, let's say, or Corundumite, I can use 1 Corundumite ore and just basic runes and basically triple my output without having to worry about coal at all. So that one's worth doing. And the other one is Holy Invocation, which we talked about before, with the urns and the prayer points. Very much worth doing. I'm not going to go into cartography and archaeology in this video. I think once I'm done with ancient relics, I'll have a separate guide for that. So put it in the comments if you want to see a Atlas of Discovery guide from me. Anyway, let's move on to the last 2 non-combat skills we're going to go over today, which is farming and township. So farming is pretty simple. You just farm. You have a plot for, oh, I have a slot to unlock. You have a plot for food seeds, which there's a lot of, and you have a plot for herbs, which is used in Herblore, like we talked about before. A lot of the, like the damage reduction one uses is Baronto. That's why I've been, and so does the Diamond Liquid, I think. So I've been grinding up a lot of Baronto herbs. And then you have sources for trees, which are basically only used to get extra XP, which I don't really care about because I have farming completely maxed. Farming is very good for food generally. A lot of people just farm carrots, and that's really the only thing they ever do in terms of food. I already have 650,000 carrots just kind of sitting in my bank from just letting it auto farm. I have a mod that allows me to auto farm, so I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to constantly come check on it at all times. Alright, that's enough of farming though. Next up is township, which is a little more complicated than farming, but also not really. You just kind of build buildings. When you're starting out on this, there's a really good township guide by my boy Ken Seekus, I believe, so I'll put a link to that in the description below. But yeah, you just build buildings for resources, and then once you have resources down, you start getting your storage system up, and then once you get your storage system up, get academies, get taverns, increase the happiness, and eventually you get town halls, which means you make a bunch of money. I'm making 6 million gold every hour. I've earned a total of 8 billion gold from township alone, and you can see I have 7 billion in my bank, and there's not really too much for me to buy. Yeah, that's it for township. Next we're gonna just start talking about combat. I'm just gonna roll over everything very quickly. I'm gonna go over the ones that apply to all classes first. So first you have defense. This does not increase your damage reduction at all. I believe defense does increase your evasion rating, but that's about all it does. The main reason you want to level up defense is so that you can equip better armors. For example, this god gear that I have on right now, it requires level 85 defense to put on. Yeah, that's about it for defense. Pretty simple. Increases your ability to wear better armor and increases your evasion rating. Next you have hit points. That's pretty simple as well. Just increases the amount of hit points, which in turn increases your auto eat threshold, which we'll go over auto eat in a second. But hit points is really important to level up because it basically means you could do harder dungeons because you can idle more. Next is prayer. Prayer is a little complicated, but also not really. There's all these. You get prayer points from burying bones, basically, or the urns like we talked about before. You use those to activate these, and they either cost based on how much you attack, or they cost based on how much the enemy attack in some cases. You have some that will just give you damage reduction, and then you have class specific ones that give magic accuracy, ranged accuracy, or melee accuracy, and then you have defensive ones that are specific to classes as well. Very cool stuff. You also have unholy prayers, which you need unholy items. This is again, I believe, just Atlas of Discovery junk, so I'm not going to worry about that in this video. Next up you have Slayer. Slayer is also extremely important. Slayer coins can be used for a lot. You have to use it to unlock certain areas which are required. You can use them to get stuff like really great food and a lot of prayer points. if you're doing hardcore combat only, every time I do hardcore combat only, I get the confetti crossbow doing Slayer, because it is just as good as the dragon crossbow. And you also need to get a lot of the Slayer gear and level it up to master, just so you can do impending darkness, because you need to get 100% Slayer area effect negation. You can see I'm on a different profile because I forgot to mention this when I talked about it earlier. You go in here, you can choose a Slayer task. You can see there's difficulties that are required certain Slayer levels, and it'll give you a random enemy to go beat. And when you beat these enemies, it'll give you Slayer coins, and you use the Slayer coins in the shop, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's about it for the overall combat skills. Now we're going to get into the specifics. So attack and strength are both melee based skills. Attack increases your accuracy rating with melee, and attack is normally also what is required to level up to equip better weapons. Strength increases your damage with melee. So that's about it. You can see down here, you have to choose which one you want to do to train a specific skill. So stab trains attack, slash trains strength, and block trains defense. Pretty simple stuff. Ranged, same deal. It's just a bow. You can train ranged with, like, there's two combat styles. This gives 6 hidden range level, which just increases your accuracy rating by a bit, and this gives minus 0.4 attack interval. Unless you're doing something very specific, I always recommend you be on rapid, like pretty much at all times. And then you have long range, which trains range and defense. I do not think I've ever used this in my life. I pretty much always just stick on rapid at all times, and I only ever use a crossbow and a shield. Two-handed bows are just not that good. The only time I use two-handed bows is when I'm specifically trying to level up ranged, because you'll always end up having so many arrows left over. For example, right now I have 72,000 mithril arrows just sitting in my bank that will probably never be used, if I'm honest. Next up is magic. Like we said before, you can use all magic to level up your magic, or you can just do combat. Magic is a little more complicated. You have a spell book that is full of spells, and you can see here it shows you what runes each spell requires. Right now I am using Gust, which is an ancient magic required to clear one of the god dungeons 100 times. It requires 25 air runes, 5 ancient runes, and 5 havoc runes. You can also see they're lit up green based on what spell you have selected. I've got 750,000 air runes, 1.2 million ancient runes, and 800,000 havoc runes, so I am good to go into combat. You can see this is the signet ring like I was talking about before, because I was doing some skill grinding and some item grinding. Yeah, would highly recommend getting that. And then I have the Fury of the Elemental Zodiacs, which I actually already have a guide on how to get on this channel. I'll link that in the top right now. That's about it for the combat skills. So I am on a new standard save here. I just skipped the tutorial so I can show you some stuff that's very important. First is auto eat. Auto eat is necessary. You need it before you can do anything. Grinding up money to get auto eat is one of the best things you can do early. Not by thieving, you kind of need auto eat to do thieving as well. Highly recommend doing fishing until you can at least get auto eat tier 1, and then cooking to get up a decent amount of food, and then go into thieving if that's really what you want to do. But normally I just do fishing, skeleton fish, selling and burying them until I get auto eat tier 3, and then I'll do thieving and combat and stuff like that. Next most important thing is the extra equipment sets. So whenever you start, you can see here I only have one equipment set unlocked. So basically you're only allowed to have one class. Either that or you swap between equipment manually, which is a pain in the ass and not something you can do in the middle of a dungeon. And you will have to swap equipment sets in dungeons later on. So these are necessary. This one is unlocked by gold, and this one is unlocked by Slayer coin, which you get from doing Slayer tasks. Next thing is the dungeon equipment swapping. Really important. Like I said before, you'll need to be able to swap equipment sets in dungeons later on. The sooner you can do it, the better, because it means you'll be able to clear stuff a lot sooner than you would otherwise. Very, very helpful to get. It is quite pricey for someone in the early game. Once you get auto eat tier 3, which should be the first thing that you go for, making money should no longer be a problem. You have multi-tree, which is what I was talking about when I was talking about woodcutting. It gives you the ability to cut down 2 trees at once. Skill and mastery XP is increased. However, the time it takes to cut down the trees is only based on the longest time to cut it down. It does not add the time it takes to cut both trees down together. So it is literally only a positive to use this. It's only 1 million, so I would highly recommend getting that. I think that's about it. You can buy extra bank slots. Do not buy the extra bank tab. This is a bait. You probably won't use this until you are way too rich to even worry about 100 million. Do not worry about this at all. Only worry about this. Next are the skill upgrades in the shop. As I said before, you can buy the axe for woodcutting to decrease your woodcutting interval. You can do the exact same for fishing and mining. Mining also has the bonus of giving you a chance to double ore per action for each pickaxe upgrade. You can also upgrade your cooking items, which is a little bit more in depth. You can see each one requires items here to do that. And then you have all of the ones that require you to do certain things like clearing all the god dungeons and then all the Atlas of Discovery stuff, which we don't care about. This is the Slayer tab. Auto Slayer is very, very good. You probably need this as well for grinding Slayer tasks overnight once you can. So I would recommend going for this as well. And then you have all of the Slayer areas. So once you do this, you can spend 3 million Slayer coins to unlock the map to the Unhallowed Wasteland. You also have Magical Ring. There are some Slayer areas that require you to have items equipped to enter them. For example, the Highland requires you to have this Magical Ring on. The Shrouded Badlands requires you to have the Blazing Lantern equipped, stuff like that. Then you have the Slayer gear, which I already mentioned. Now you have gloves. Gloves are very worth looking into. They're a little expensive. Cooking gloves are worth it when you're low level cooking and you don't always have a 100% chance to successfully cook an item. Mining gloves are definitely worth it and something I still use in the late game because it doubles your ore, doubles all the ore you get. It does not work on, I don't think it works on runes. I can't be sure, I'm not sure though. And then you have the skill capes like we talked about before. You can buy materials and stuff like that. Like I said, you can buy the bowstring to use in fletching. Now you have the skill gear. So for this, you need to level up Township and complete the Township tasks. Once you do that, you'll unlock the ability to purchase these. Now the cool thing about this is if you combine you see there's one for every single skill. If you can, I can't buy one here to show you, but if you combine like say the helmet of every single skill with one of these skilling outfit upgrades, it gives you a helmet that increases all of your mastery gain across all skills by 8%, which is very, very good. Here's all the cats, which you need Malk's cats. Malk's is the dev of the game if you did not know. And you can get these. They just give a little bit of extra stuff. It's funny. Then you have the pet rocks as well. Also funny. And then the hats, which is also quite funny. I will have the links to the Melvor Idle wiki page and a website I like that lets you know if you can idle dungeons or not in a pinned comment below, as well as a link to join our Discord, which I'm currently setting up. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you wanted to hop in there and give me a shout. Please like, comment what you're thinking of the game so far if you're new. And if you're not new, comment if you learned anything from this video. Subscribe for more Melvor Idle content. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.